Welcome to Neurotypicals Don't Juggle Chainsaws, the podcast that cuts through the rubbish to explore the world of neurodiversity. I'm your host, Nic King.
And I'm your host, Kate Fox. And together we're here to explore, understand, and celebrate being neurodivergent in a neurotypical world. From ADHD and autism to dyslexia and other quirky brains, we talk about it all.
And go off on tangents. So whether you're neurodivergent, love someone who is, or you're just curious about neurodivergent minds, you are in the right place.
Let's get ready to juggle some words and maybe even a few chainsaws, metaphorically, of course.
Welcome back to Neurotypicals Don't Juggle Chainsaws with myself, Nic King.
And myself, Kate Fox.
Indeed. Today, we're going to have a moment. We're calling this podcast House of Cards. And funnily enough, House of Cards has been on my podcast list for a very, very long time. And it's sort of this idea that a lot of us go around with, I don't know, pyramids of cards built on a foundation of sand. And possibly that's just me. I don't think it's just me. I think it's probably a lot of you out there. However, currently my house of cards has collapsed. So we have a bit of an announcement.
Go on.
We're going to go monthly for a while.
This seems very wise in the circumstances of you having many domestic childcare situations that need your time and attention. You do not have time or spoons and actually, yeah, but we didn't want to stop the podcast because we like doing it and it's important. And Nic did offer me the option of ethical non-monogamy, but I have turned down this option despite my avid watching of Channel 4's Open House, which reveals that. Anyway, sorry, that's a whole separate issue. Okay, House of Cards. Yeah, so it's interesting. We haven't done it. It's been on the list. It is this idea. I suppose I was seeing it as the idea of a bit like how many of us are only one payday really away from an edge of precarity and poverty. So one thing goes wrong, if you haven't got that buffer, then you're kind of stuck. I think for many neurodivergent people, in terms of capacity and energy and the lives we have constructed, one element goes or has its foundations shaken, and actually the whole thing becomes very fragile and difficult to manage, really. And we are more, I would say we are more prone to that, aren't we? Than, although this can apply to that, of course, for many people, for disabled people, for people near a poverty edge, for people with mental health issues. I think same, really, House of Cards, everything's standing, but then, crucial.
And sometimes it only takes a little bit. And I think if it's a little bit for a little period of time, then that's sort of sometimes manageable. But actually, I mean, I don't mind a bit of disclosure. My youngest child is really unwell and we don't quite know what's wrong with her, but we are quite aware of this through the summer holidays now. I know this podcast will be going out a little bit later than when we record it. But she's been out of school since May half term already. And there is no sign that she will be back in any kind of school or childcare anytime soon. And I need to be realistic about how many hours I have in the day. Do you know, I once sat and figured out that if I think about, you know, how you get PIP or DLA for your kids, right? And that's meant to mean that they need 35 hours care a week, right? So I was thinking we've got 2 young people on DLA, so that's 90 hours. And then Mark's on PIP, so that's another sort of 35 hours. So that's what we're on 100 and maths people. I bet somebody else did a lot quicker than I did. 115 hours. And then I, in theory, work a sort of 40-ish hour week, so that's 145 hours. And then, neither of my children have been in full-time education. So if you want to count another sort of 25 hours-ish a week there, that's, 195 hours? I don't know. Do you know there's only 168 hours in the week?
What? Oh, okay. I mean, to be honest, I did get lost quite early on in that. But in summary,
In summary,
let's,
the capacity versus need at best in our house is not balanced
no,
ever.
no.
But then if you throw literally a sort of spanner in the works on top of that, things can get very tricky very quickly. And
Mm,
if you are sort of aware that's going to be long term, and I have never actually had to do this before. I've never had to completely replan work. Even though I've had children out of school, I've had children be sick, I've been sick, we've had surgeries, this, that, and the other. I've never actually had to sit and completely replan my life. And it's been a
mm.
long time since I've had to. I would say it's probably been 10 years since my big car crash that I've had to sit and absolutely replan my lives. Um, and I like a plan.
Yeah. So this is because there's not. So for you at this juncture, I mean, there's a number of things that are very difficult generally for neurodivergent people. I mean, one of them is a massive uncertainty. So there's an uncertainty in this situation, isn't there? Because
Yeah.
you just can't know how long it's going to. And then there is so having to replan. So that in itself will be taking ongoing energy and spoons, won't it? Because it's
Yeah. Yeah. Because, like all of us, like you were talking about that sort of financial situation, I can't just stop bringing money in. And because we're self-employed, it's not like I've got a long-term sick package sitting waiting
yeah,
for me
yeah.
in some sort of public sector kind of way. That's not how this works.
And then you've got the sort of and not assuming for a generally alexithymic person how this sits, but you've got the emotional anxiety stuff that is swirling about somewhere and takes spoons to have. Well, that's interesting. You're like, oh, go on. How's that?
No, not so much. Still not really having feelings over here. However,
Oh, good.
what
Well,
is
that's
taking
good, isn't it? Good. Oh, go
what
on.
is taking spoons is the admin. I call it mum min because it's not real admin. Because if it was real admin, I'd be able to get somebody else to do it for me. So I call it mum min, which is like chasing appointments, chasing people, chasing paperwork. You know, has somebody else done this? You've got to remember as well, between both my kids, we have 36 professionals in our life. Like
What
right
the?
here, right
Oh,
now,
my
not like
God.
ongoing ones. Oh, do you want another fact? Between my two children, we have had 21 ADHD nurses.
I,
Harriet's had 9 dietitians.
what?
So, like, right here, right now, I have a team of 36 people who don't communicate with each other, want to communicate with me, have me communicate with everybody else, and, like, don't share information. And it's like managing a team of people, not only
Yes.
completely unpaid and for free, but, like, if you would imagine having, like, a team of people at work that shared no database, no information, had no ability to communicate with each other, you would shut that business down, wouldn't you? That would be a really bad idea.
Yeah, you would. Well, I'd shut the business down and then I'd go find a desert island and then I would stay on it for about 10
Ever.
years, to be honest. But I didn't realise that, Nick. Flipping heck. And I'm aware that that's the case for a lot of disabled people who are managing these teams of people in it. And that's already there is less energy. I'm just thinking if, oh, honestly, that's really, because that in itself would be enough things.
Mm. And
But
that's
now there's
and
an
that is
element.
just yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So how, well, I'm glad. I mean, it's interesting. I kind of quite want to go back to um the feelings thing. Just that's really, I'm glad that because this is where I feel that alexithymia is a very helpful superpower. I was just reading today, actually, there was an article in The Guardian. It was a story that had passed me by originally. A young woman, a model, had been kidnapped back in 2017 in Italy, and she was held hostage for several days. And when she came out, she made a statement to the media, and her statement, although it said, every minute of every day, I didn't know what was going to happen to me, the way she delivered it was really without emotion and quite jaunty, and people disapproved of the fact she was also wearing a tiny vest and tiny shorts at the time. And then obviously, in the book of etiquette for what you should wear after you have been released from a hostage situation, apparently that's not in it, according to these many unwritten rules. Anyway, now there's a documentary about the case, and at the end of the documentary, she gets an autism diagnosis, and she's almost having to sort of say, look, the reason that you all didn't believe this had happened to me because of my reaction was this. I'm autistic. Also, being autistic in the situation of being held hostage by a really dodgy Italian bloke was in many ways very helpful. So that's a round the house's way of saying, for those of us who do not express or process emotions in the way that other people would like us to do, A, it's just a thing. Some of us.
It's just a thing.
It's just a thing. And B,
Thing.
in fact, sometimes it's a really flipping good thing from our point of view. Just wanted to note that. But yeah, back to the House of Cards. So what is, though, if anything, working for you in this time of completely disordered sort of life and future plans? Are there any reliefs or escapes? What helps, if anything?
I think we have a bit of a household saying, which doesn't particularly fit the context of it, but I think it's just a sort of a friends thing. And we have we use the word pivot, right? Which is essentially something comes up and you just kind of got to pivot around an obstacle, as it were. So, a wheelchair has been purchased, so we are out and about, and that's done. There is plans for sort of other things to make sure we're all right. Realistically, I am still, going to Zumba. I am still going to the theatre. We've had to sort of rethink the smallest human going to the theatre at the minute. But we went away to the lakes to go and hug some alpacas. Hence the purchase of a wheelchair. Also, I keep up. Those of you who are neurodivergent, who are having neurodivergent small human, keep up with your baby wearing. Harriet was back on my back in a baby backpack, like on the weekend.
Oh,
I
God.
was like, when did you stop baby wearing? We're still going at 9.
Baby, this is a new phrase to me as a happily, even more happily now
Well,
child-free.
considering where you live, you must see women with children strapped to them in various packs and wraps, or maybe you're just looking at the dogs.
I
That's what it
probably
is, isn't it? You're looking for
literally
the
am
dogs.
just looking at the
Yeah.
dogs by the coast. I haven't noticed it that much. So baby wear. So literally carrying. No, it sounds more involved than simply carrying the baby. It sounds more like they've become an accessory. It's the
I
same.
mean, to an extent, yeah, baby wearing. So like you like tiny babies, you get little wraps, you get little packs, and
Yeah,
you
yeah.
just strap them to you. Which is always what I did with my youngest because she had really bad reflux and she was shockingly bad at lying flat. It was really bad for her. So she was always in baby worn, like forever, forever. Like, yeah.
Oh, thing. Okay, well, it's handy that she's like little enough to still be wearable.
Just. I mean, to be fair, I made a mistake of picking up Zed the other day, who is now taller than me, not much lighter than me by a huge amount. And I was like, I can still carry you, and I can, but just not for long. And then slightly regret.
Yeah, well, keep your baby
Well,
wear
I think
things.
there is a thing. I feel like there's a thing about neurodivergent parenting and keeping a level of strength where you can still kind of carry them. Like I feel that. I really do.
Yeah,
I feel like
well,
that's a
no.
thing.
It sounds like one of the things I will never have considered, but yeah. Also,
Yeah.
doesn't it stop them in other situations from going anywhere, which seems helpful?
I think because Zed has always the quite often freezed and flopped, frozen flopped. Pick an F. Like particularly with loud noises. So like if a fire alarm goes off, Zed will hit the deck. And potentially if there is an actual need to get off out of the building, sometimes that has involved lifting and carrying. I haven't done it for a very long time. I don't particularly fancy it. Carrying Zed around now is mainly more for funs and jokes rather than an essential need. But as I say, they are taller than me now.
Yeah. No wonder you need to keep going to Zumba. Flipping it.
Exactly. We need some strength training in there somewhere as well, I think.
Hope you've been enjoying the podcast. If you fancy showing your support, you can leave us a little bit of money through the PayPal link on our website, and I will use it to buy a lovely cup of tea and make my life better. I can't speak for Nic. It'll probably be something very worthwhile. You can do that via Neurotypicals Don't Juggle Chainsaws, the website, and it's an easy way to help keep the podcast running. Thank you for being part of our journey.
What is so you get cuddling an alpaca. I'm sure it was generally excellent all round. In terms, so you've got the 36 people. Honestly, I did, as I say, I didn't realise that, and that just the thought of having to remember 36 names and faces, to be honest, would be beyond my usual capacity. But is there anything else that people can do that's supportive? How are people being?
I get panicked because I tend to disappear, and some people take that personally. And that is literally just about not enough capacity for anything outside my house.
Of
Like,
course.
it's really that simple. Currently there is no capacity for anything outside of my home.
Mm.
There's just not. Um, Currently there's not quite enough capacity for things inside my home. So anything outside of my home. So I get concerned that, we've talked about this in the friendshipy ones, we've talked about this in other ones. People sort of take it personally that, you've abandoned them. And don't get me wrong, I do. I like a check-in. But like, yeah, a non-offense to like the understanding that like spoons are so low that none are getting spent on you. And that's not a personal thing, that's just a lack of capacity.
Of course, gosh, no, but yes, I suppose I do remember people take these things personally. It seems so self-evident, like in what's happening to you, that you wouldn't then have spare spoons. But yeah, I can.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, on the other hand, other people have other things going on. Do you know what I mean? And that, they might want attention, spoons spent on them, but sometimes,
Ah, yeah, it cannot be. Yeah, it just cannot be done.
yeah,
I suppose in the ideal world, then, like if we had a society that was a little bit more open to the fact that some individuals and families may, at certain points, have massively reduced capacity to just be in
be
the world, really. Yeah, there would be better safety nets around that, wouldn't there?
yeah, realistically, and funnily enough, I've had a couple of these conversations recently because professionals are like, but but this hasn't happened and this hasn't happened, and I'm like, yeah, are you doing it? And they're like, no, and I'm like, right, if you're not currently part of my solution, you're part of my problem. So like,
Mhm.
you can deal with that however you want. But
Mm.
yeah, realistically, normally what you need is another pair of hands. And some people have that. Some people have large extended families or large extended, like, circles of friends and stuff like that. But I think a lot of us don't.
No. In fact, nowadays, probably, especially if, as people have, they're no longer all living and staying in the same town, are they? People have moved away if they were indeed there in the first place. And then, yeah, their busy lives, people are left alone pretty much to get on with it. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think as well, I was saying this to somebody the other day, all my friendships that where people have children, all those children are neurodivergent. All of them. I don't have a friendship with an adult who has children who have like non-neurodivergent children. It's just not who I have in my life. Do you know what I mean? It's not like I weeded them out. It's just like they never showed up in the first place.
Exactly. Well, yeah, I was thinking, why do I only really know neurodivergent children? And then I was like, oh, I only
Because we only know the neurodivergent adults.
neurodivergent people. Yeah, okay. Yeah, so I have no idea what neurotypical children are. was thinking, no, I didn't. I was going to say, for a minute, I thought, oh, maybe I played with some, which was a very unusual situation, in a garden the other day. But no, the reason that that we interacted at all, I'm presuming strongly, was because they were neurodivergent. Basically, I'm a poet for a project in a community garden, and this dad was there with his two daughters, and I tried to ask them something for my poem, and they both went completely mute, and I was like, fair dues. But then later on, they came over to where I was sitting, and they were all just like hovering. And even I picked this up. I was like, hang on, they're like hovering? And they had a ball. And I was a bit like, I think I should offer to join in. And it was this whole quite complex set of realizations and questions I went through, but I was like, no, I think this is the right thing. And I was like, I don't mind playing with the ball. And then they were really happy. And then they became Elsa from Frozen and Anna. I think another clue, probably they were neurodivergent. Didn't every autistic girl sing Let It Go for
I mean,
years?
to be fair, there was a point where every child was
Every
singing Let
child,
It
okay,
Go.
I do.
Zed was at the correct age for that phase. I can assure you, it was a time.
And then so we somehow we played with a ball together. I let them obviously set the rules, which were hard to. It wasn't simply pass the ball; they changed, and then they decided that they were able to freeze and unfreeze me at will, which was fine. One of them would freeze me, and then the next would unfreeze me, and I was very obliging, and I would freeze and unfreeze, and they liked that they had this power. And then they called me Glinda, which was nice. I was Glinda. I was the good witch. But I
And we're crossing franchises, but we'll allow it.
well, oh yeah, fair point. Oh yeah, so was that from like Disney?
That's from Wicked.
Oh
Or
yeah,
Wizard of Oz. But I would imagine Wicked in that.
oh yeah, no, I was
No.
thinking Wicked, but aren't they the same company? Do you know what I mean? Like, who did? Oh, it's for Pixar, Frozen. Oh yeah,
No,
it's as well.
Frozen's Disney and Wicked's Universal, isn't it?
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Um, and but I was thinking this interaction's only happening because they're neurodivergent. Sorry, that was an unnecessarily long diversion. But in summary, like the chances of someone having, as we have said, the cause of neurodivergence is people having sex with each other, mainly is the cause. As in,
By the next podcast, we might actually know the cause. The Americans promised it for September.
oh, good point. Waiting for that, RFK. Not heard it mentioned for a little while. Anyway, so that all contributes to the House of Cards, doesn't it? Because actually, it's not like there's the one neurodivergent person in the family and everyone else has loads of capacity and loads of energy and loads like that's except people think it's a thing, don't they? Like as in when there is not a realization, when many of the people in the family are not diagnosed, there is not a recognition that the people struggling, for example, in a caring role or that their house of cards has just collapsed, that the particular struggle is exacerbated by their neurodivergence, if you see what I mean.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have a level of privilege where I am happy to set boundaries and not really care. I mean, I might sort of like mention it, but like not really care. So currently, top tips for anyone listening. Currently, my voicemail on my phone is if you want to leave a message for me, please do so. If you are a professional involved in my children's life, please email me. And that is currently what my voicemail is. Not that it's always listened to. And they may still leave one or ring back. But like that, yeah, that is currently my voicemail. Because I just like this idea that people can call me any time of the day. They are wrong.
Well, yeah, and to me that just sounds because you're almost being a bit apologetic about that message. I'm like, that sounds so perfectly reasonable.
Oh, they take it personally. They really do. So this morning I had a call where they cancelled the appointment. And then because I was unable to rearrange it on the spot because we don't know like what Zed's timetable looks like for September, they were like, oh, well, phew, like this. I'm like, can we? Just get
So we
stuff. Email me.
Is it hard for the professionals sometimes to step fully into the shoes, well, into your shoes and your family's shoes in that case? Is it a kind of just they're not quite able to get there in imagining what it's actually like, even though presumably they encounter these sort of situations all the time?
I just think oh, I think because a lot of like SIPS appointments are SIPS cams, whatever you're calling it, wherever you are, they're like hen's teeth, right? So like the idea of somebody not immediately being like, oh, please let me rearrange, sir. Can I have some more appointment, please? I think that comes as a bit of a shock to their system.
Mm,
Whereas I'm like, you are one of 36 and I mean, you're important, but you're probably on an important scale. Um, and you're clearly not in my top three right now. So like, do you know what I mean? And there is a bit of that. I think a lot of them struggle with the fact that they're not the center of my world, because they're not.
so there's a power thing usually where they hold
Yeah,
the power to deliver things that you might need,
yeah,
and they see themselves as having this power
yeah.
because you don't have the thing, whatever it is, the service that they have. And aha, we have this. But actually, a anyway, for you, I think an awareness of actually these should ideally be collaborative partnerships, maybe is
Yeah.
how
It
you
should
want.
absolutely be a collaboration, and it's very rare that it is.
Mm,
Even with the good people, I have a few good professionals, but even then, sometimes you just like, come on, like, let's get on board with the reality here. Particularly because, as well as a neurodivergent, like, if we're talking about my children's team, I pretty much exclusively and only see them with my children in tow. So it's often quite difficult to convey the reality of our situation because you don't necessarily want to do that in front of your kids. You don't really
mm,
want to turn around and be like, I've had to completely rearrange my business because this medical incident's happened. Because like
mhm.
I don't want them to take that on. Like it's not their fault.
No, no, of course. So there is and also the mum min that you mentioned, the endless cascade of it. By the sound of it, I'm kind of recognizing, yeah. Someone on my writing course kind of talks about this a bit sometimes, and I hadn't realized why and what was. I suspect they might be in a similar situation.
Mm.
Um, I presume if there were not if these professionals were able to link up more or didn't have this sense of not understanding the overwhelm they're contributing to, they could uh, tailor their or just have a little less communication or do it more efficiently somehow. This just seems to be adding to the whole.
Yeah. And this is the thing. And then there's processes you can do things like they call them TAFs up here, which is a team round the family meeting, where the theory is that you get all the professionals under one table and like, they make a plan and then they do the plan. But actually when you get to the level of professional input that we have, you're not getting them around the table. And actually a huge TAF's probably more problematic than it's worth. And again, I'm very much of the mindset that currently unless you are bringing me a solution that I really, really want, you are really part of my problem right now because
Mm,
I don't have capacity to spend on you. I certainly don't have. There's an idea that, you're meant to only sort of tell your story once. So people are meant to have a rough idea what's going on in your life, whether you communicate it to them or not. Um, but that's not true. Like, not even close to being true. And you just get sick of retelling it as well. Do you know what I mean? I've got a really bad habit of doing like a copy everybody an email. This is your update.
well, that sounds again. That doesn't sound like a bad.
Again,
That sounds sensible.
that's partly because I have demanded everybody's email, and I do mean demanded. Like quite a lot of people do not give them out willingly. Some people are more willing than others. But like, yeah, I have everybody's email. But again, that comes from a very long learning process.
And actually, so as we kind of conclude
Mm.
our House of Cards episode, our kind of like true life in the moment House of Cards collapsing, kind of follow up for update in a month because we're going to pull back because of
What you guys really actually need to do, not to sound like a YouTuber, is like and subscribe and turn on that notification bell because you're gonna forget.
oh yeah.
Particularly if you're on your own personal House of Cards situation. So come off the pod, go find whatever, platform you're using, Spotify, YouTube, whoever, literally like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and we are going to do the last Thursday of every month until I find a new deck of cards and build them again. Thanks for tuning in to Neurotypicals Don't Juggle Chainsaws. We're so glad you joined us today to explore the fascinating world of neurodivergence with your hosts, me, Nic King.
And me, Kate Fox. If our conversation sparked a thought, a question, or even a smile, don't keep it to yourself. Drop us a line at hello@neurotypicalsdon'tjugglechainsaws.co.uk or visit our website, neurotypicalsdon'tjugglechainsaws.co.uk, to write in. We'd love to hear from you.
If you enjoyed today's episode, consider leaving us a 5-star review on your favourite podcast platform.
Until next time, keep embracing the unique ways you juggle the chainsaws of life.